right, welcome back to the Vessel Podcast. As promised, I have a special guest with me today. I have Miss Nicole Clinkscales. Let's give her a hand. Welcome, Miss Nicole. And thank you for agreeing to be on today for this episode. We
Absolutely.
have we have something really good planned, so we're going to be talking about gratefulness and contentment and what that means. But before we do that, why don't you tell the people a little bit about who you are?
Wow. So I'm Nicole. I'm an attorney by practice. I'm an advocate by calling. Um, practice law here in Columbus in a variety of areas. Mostly what you would expect in a small town, which is everything people need from top to bottom for the most part: family law, wills and estates, property work, doing that kind of thing, criminal defense, personal injury. Been doing that here in Columbus for a lot of years. I came back home to be part of making this community better. So I've been busy balancing between
Sure.
the law practice and doing some community advocate work. Um, I just love dialogue, love conversation, love
Awesome.
being able to tap in and tune in to folks, and particularly about things that I'm passionate about. And so I'm just, the mother of one amazing son who is an aspiring attorney himself.
Nice.
Um, yeah, prayerfully one day he'll be, a really big deal. He has a huge mind and just is brilliant beyond words. So that's just kind of it.
Yeah,
And I'm glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me, for thinking
absolutely.
enough to say, hey, let's talk, let's chat together. So
For
thank you for
sure.
having me.
Absolutely. It is an honor to have you on here. And Nicole, I'll tell you, I've watched you from afar in the community. And whether it's just, I think rode by one day and you were watering plants or something somewhere. I can't remember. I don't know whether it was in Sandfield at the mural. It was just a random day. So little things like that. So I appreciate all you do for this community. I'm what do you call it? I migrated here not too long ago. I did school here, then I decided to make Columbus my home for now. So it's been a joy to be here in Columbus. So
Wow. I did not know that you were that this was not your hometown. So that's
no,
awesome. Where are you from?
just across the bridge over in Starkville. That's where I grew up. So
Ah, I
not too
think I
far.
think at some point I did know that. I
Yeah.
think at some point we may have talked about that, or you may have mentioned that.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. So,
awesome.
but came over here to the W for undergrad and took a break for 2 years for grad school, and then I came back. So Columbus has been good to me, and I'm blessed. So, yeah,
That is awesome. You should be on a commercial that we need to film for Columbus to promote, a
absolutely.
positive message, because we don't get that a whole lot from people
Yeah,
that actually
sure.
say good things about it and feel good about it, especially transplants. I mean, so that's a real deal now. I'm mentioning
Absolutely.
that to George. You can count that as a
Okay.
done deal.
Okay, George, I know you're listening, so write that one down in your journal because it's coming.
My
So, but no, yeah,
goodness.
Columbus has been good to me, and I'm grateful to be here. So, all right, so let's get to it. So, gratefulness and contentment. What I want to start us off first is just kind of defining what those words mean. So, just tell us in your own words, how would you define just gratefulness as just a general term?
Wow. So I think about, gratitude,
Sure.
which is a state of mind and spirit alignment to me. And so gratefulness is the outward manifestation of just having a state of gratitude. And for me, um, it really goes beyond being thankful
Yeah.
for everything and in all things, but really having a spirit that embraces everything that is, sort of um, before me, and seeing no one thing as more important than the other, but just really having a state of gratitude for my existence and for everything that God has allowed me to experience and to be and to see and to
Absolutely.
have and to do and all of those things. So it's just really a state of mind and spirit being aligned in that place of beyond
Sure.
being thankful, but just, really in tune to my, myself.
Right, right. I think that's a definitely a great summary of what the word means as a whole, because you're right. I think it goes beyond just being thankful. I mean, yeah, I'm thankful for, certain things and items that I have possession over, but to truly be grateful, I
Mhm.
think that goes beyond just that. And so I agree with you. And so with the word gratefulness, I find contentment. Some people use it interchangeably, but I think there's a difference, right? And so talk to me a little bit about what you think contentment is.
Mm. Yeah, that's again just another state of you know one of my goals now is peace, is just
Yeah.
to establish peace and to be at peace.
Yes.
And the Bible tells you that as much as possible, live peaceably with all men. So that's sort of my goal. And so for me, contentment is a state of say, being satisfied, or
Yes.
being satiated.
Yeah.
The flip side is the insatiable, which creates unrest and anxiety and all of those things. But when you are content and you're just
Mm,
at peace, then you can accept everything that is, you know, again, everything that's around me, everything that's before me, whatever has happened, whatever is happening, whatever might,
yeah.
be on the horizon. Is just that, and it's not a sense of complacency, as we oftentimes think. People say, you're content, which means you're just, kind of going with the flow.
Right.
There is a place of going with the flow, but it's an intentional place. It's not a lazy place. It's a decision you make to have
Yes.
peace within yourself. So,
Yes.
gratitude is a practice. To me, contentment is a place, and it's just
Yeah.
staying in that place.
Man, I like that. That's good. That's good. That's good. And I think that's a great segue into my next question for you. So, speaking of all of that, if you look internally, at yourself and where you are, I think one of the major milestones in our faith walks is reaching that sincere place of gratitude and contentment. So, where are you on that spectrum of being in that place?
I I count not myself to have apprehended, um, but this I do know, that it was an intentional act on my part to get in, to get closer to this place, because I know it's attainable. So that's one of the things, is to decide to know that you can be at a place where you're more at peace. I very candidly have had bouts of anxiety and
Yeah.
depression, and getting to the root cause of those things. I have just made a decision that in order to address and deal with and counter and to
Yeah.
um you know quench those feelings, is you have to really radically decide to be at peace. And so sometimes it takes people who have known me before
Yeah.
by surprise, because they think, wait a minute, they call me Clink in college. This ain't the Clink that I remember, man. You were a fireball, and I still am about things that I'm passionate about.
Sure.
I am, but I don't stay in that place. So even if I get amped up about something, I don't stay in that place, and that place doesn't dominate. I'm really, really in tune with myself, and kind of knowing, okay, let's bring it back to center. So um, I can't say I'm at an 8 of 10,
Yeah.
but I can tell you that I am light years beyond where I once was, and it's such a great place to be
Sure.
because it feels good.
Yeah.
And I think that's the goal, is to be able to live in peace. And
Yeah.
so it feels good. And I tell my friend all the time, if it's a good place, go there. So my place of peace and contentment and gratitude is a good place, and I like to go there often.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
I think that our experiences offer that place, So I think back to me 5 years ago, or, me 2 years ago, really. And so I think some of my past life experiences has really shaped me to where, today I find a lot of peace, as you mentioned, in where I am in life, because so many times for me personally, I have focused on the things that I don't have, or
Mm.
I could have a million things that I've prayed for. I journal a lot. And so I write down my prayers so that I can go back and say, look at God, look what he did for me. I'm not there no more. Or he answered that prayer. Well,
Wow.
for a while, I can remember for like maybe a year and a half or so, I can remember I was praying for this certain thing to happen and it never did. Never happened.
Mm.
It's like, God, okay, I've been patient. I've been obedient. I've done these things while progression and achievements were happening still in my life, but I chose to focus on this one little thing that has not had not manifested yet in my life. And so it was like it was not a good feeling. It was uneasiness. It was like I felt like I was doing deeds in order to get something in return.
Mm.
And I was like, ooh, this ain't good. But at the moment that I realized that, when I became self-aware of what I was actually doing, it was kind of like, you know what, I'm done focusing on that. God, you have provided in ways that I didn't even know I needed. And I'm
Mm.
thankful and I'm grateful for that. I'm at peace. I'm
Wow.
content. And so,
Wow.
but it took me a long time to get there. I have not been at that place for a very long time. This is new to me to find
Wow.
contentment in what I have and where I am in life. I remember coming out of grad school, all my professors and things were saying, you need to job search, away from the golden triangle. There is more to life. And I realized that. I know that there is more life out there. I'm very aware of
Mhm.
that. But something in my heart was telling me, I'm gonna do that. But if I get something here, I'll definitely accept what God has for me wherever it is. And this is where I landed. And at that moment, I was like, okay, this is teaching me that you have to recognize, your blessings and be grateful for those things, and you can't depend on, somebody else's I guess idea of where you would be okay and be content with. So lots of
Yeah.
life experiences.
And I think oftentimes the anxiety that we feel,
Yeah.
or the uneasiness about where we are, or these check marks, are because we're basing it on other people's view of what is good for us, and what our lives should look like. And when you can kind of release that
Yeah.
and really lean into, well, God, what is it that you have? And then accept that maybe your will for my life looks completely different
Yeah.
than what I thought my life is supposed to look like. I've learned to just lean into what God has for me, and not, do a whole lot of questioning. Though God and I have really, really interesting conversations
Yeah.
all the time. Doesn't mean that I don't still, battle with some things, but I have learned really to just embrace God's will for my life, and to accept, oh, well, maybe that wasn't supposed to happen for a reason, because I've learned in forcing things and not being willing to accept what is, I'm going to make it be what I want it to be.
Sure.
I've created mess and more trauma and heartache and all that for myself, trying to make it be what I wanted it, rather than just to lean into what God has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've all been there before. So you mentioned a word earlier. You mentioned complacency, right? And
Mm.
so I struggled with this because in conversations with friends and things, they're talking about, oh, you gotta, I'm trying to grind and get here. I don't sleep. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. It's like a constant like hunger for more and more and more.
Mm.
How do we how, I guess what I'm trying to say is, um how do we avoid that feeling of complacency when we're not, I guess, achieving, or we're not what people would say grinding or trying to get to the next level? How do we find really, I guess, true contentment in where we are and not be seen as complacent?
Mm. I think, one is being true to yourself, obviously,
Right.
in complete isolation to what everybody else thinks. Um, but then knowing also your why. Why am I desiring this or that?
Yeah.
And if you can answer, because this is truly what feels right for me, or this is truly where God is leading
Yeah.
me, um, then pursue. Because he says that. You ask God, do I go up? Should I pursue this? And when God gives you the clarity to do that, then man, you go forward with full force, knowing that he's pushing, he's behind you.
Yeah.
But oftentimes we do it in our own strength because we're either trying to prove something
Yeah.
or we haven't consulted with, the authority of all
Absolutely.
authorities, and that's God. So yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Whoo.
Yeah.
Gosh.
And, and I've done that. I mean, I will say, man, I've done that many times.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, if you stay close to God, I just believe that even when we get ourselves out there, and sometimes we exhaust ourselves
Yeah.
and we get ourselves stuck in a rut, like being, stuck in mud and your tires spinning on the car.
Mhm.
I think God comes along like that tow truck and He will pull you out of it.
Come
You
on.
know, so it's not to say that He can't rescue you back, because He will,
Yes.
but I have been there where I have forced a thing or I've gone after and really didn't know if God was saying, yes, Nicole, do that.
Yeah.
So I've just, and I don't know if it's age or just experience.
Yeah.
I hope I'm not in that category of, old folks that are now saying, yeah, you gotta be careful, slow down. But certainly experience is a great teacher. And so you learn from having done some things
Yeah.
the way, the wrong, or I wouldn't say the wrong way, but just a different way,
Different way. Yeah.
that there is a better way.
Yeah, absolutely. And that reminds me, when we initially started talking about doing this episode, I mentioned Solomon from Ecclesiastes. And so in
Mm.
his old age, he kind of, that the book of Ecclesiastes, he's just kind of reminiscing on his life and all the lessons he learned. He talked about, all things are futile. Like, you're in a pursuit of wind. You never, everything that has been, that's, been, has been, done already. There's nothing new under the sun. And so it's like he spent a lot of his life, he had all the wealth, he had everything you could imagine to have, and he still was empty. And he was empty
Wow.
because he was apart from God. And so,
Okay.
what I got from what you just said too, and thinking about Solomon, relationship is key. Relationship is key, and I believe it's the root of really trying to find or get to that place of contentment, is building a solid foundation with God and understanding who God is to you. Because in all of these things, gratefulness and contentment, it's really coming to terms with who we are and whose we are. And
Wow.
so I feel that I think for me, in my last, I would say, 3 to 4 years, I really focused on relationship, because I had a hard time understanding what it meant to hear from God. You hear
Mm.
pastors and things talking about God told me this, and God, I didn't get that. I really thought it was just preacher talk, if I'm honest with you. That's
Yes.
a real thing. You just said it. You
Yes.
said, I have conversations with God. So do I.
Yes.
And I'm more keen to his voice now because I spend more time with him. And that has not always been the case, but I had to learn that. It didn't come with just identifying as Christian or just going to church on Sunday, or even in ministry doing, I work with the youth at my church and all of that. None of that really meant much to me until I had a real relationship with him. And so
Mm.
I really feel that that's the root of all of this that we're talking about, is forming that
Wow.
relationship with God.
Wow. And the busyness of life sometimes
Yeah.
keeps us from hearing from God. That the anxiety, the fear of just going through all of the,
Yeah.
the rigmarole of life.
Sure.
I it sometimes it disconnects us from, being able to really tap into how God chooses to speak.
Yeah.
I tell you, one of the seminal messages that I've heard in my lifetime is where Elijah
Hmm.
is waiting to hear from God, and of course he's trying to find him in the wind, and all of this, and it says that he's not in all of those things, but he's that still small voice.
Yeah.
And how can you hear that voice when we're constantly sort of on the go? We're constantly, and then we're also always shouting at God, God, talk to me, God,
Hmm.
hear me, don't you see me suffering, don't you see I'm confused, and I'm. and I'm needing a word. And God is saying, yeah, the more time you spend with me in quiet contemplation, the more you're going to hear my voice. And it may not even be that audible voice, but it will confirm what is in your spirit. But you got to get to a place of stillness where you can really reflect. And man, definitely in his word, the more you read it, the more you study, it comes
Yeah.
back to you. He confirms his word. But it is really just taking the time to build that relationship with him so that you know when it is him
Yeah.
speaking to you and through you. And that takes time. I
Man, it
think I
does.
think as a young person, we want that instantaneous,
Mm-hmm.
connect. We want to hear that word, that confirmation right away. It doesn't happen often like that. It
Yeah.
really takes time.
Absolutely. It definitely takes time. And I think that for me, there are different signs and things that happen in confirmation as you spoke of. But
Mm,
I also I think that God, when you start to build that relationship and become keen to his voice, he takes the guesswork out of it. You know,
mhm.
right? And so you don't have to question it when the Holy Spirit just comes over and helps you. I mean, that's what his gift, God's gift to us was to
Yeah,
help us through these situations. And man, huh, I'm grateful for it. See, I
yeah.
am. I'm grateful for it. So as we wind down, I have a couple more questions just to kind of round out the conversation because we could do a part two. It's a lot of stuff. Let me ask you off the rip question. It really doesn't even have anything to do with this. I don't think it might. Do you think this is a thought provoking question? So you may not have to answer right now, but later on. Do you
All right.
think that you have to experience immense suffering in order to experience the full goodness of God? Okay.
Mm,
Now that question, I've asked this before to someone else, but that question stemmed. I was reading an article, a girl I follow on Instagram. Instagram, she's a theologian, but very I don't know the word unconventional, right? She has some
mm,
unconventional thoughts, but she said that she doesn't claim to be a Romans 8:28 type of person. You know, all
mm,
things work together for the good of those who love the Lord and are called
mhm,
according. So she said that I shouldn't have to go through all of this stuff just so I can see how good God is. And that, to me, I was like, whoa, like, because I've heard that scripture so many times. And
mhm,
so that's kind of where that question kind of stemmed from. So
mm.
I want you to
So
ponder.
your question is, do you have to experience suffering or great suffering, I think you said, in order to experience the greatness of God?
Yeah, the full goodness of God.
Over God. I would say no, because, and I'm not suggesting, let me take it from someone who has experienced great suffering. Um, for me, I mean, I wouldn't, as the old folks say, I wouldn't take nothing from my journey. I really wouldn't.
Yeah.
As difficult as times have been sometimes, but it is only through those experiences that I have developed the relationship and the peace of God and peace with
Mhm.
God that I have. I'm not, but I don't think you have to, because anytime you step outdoors, if you are conscious, then you know that this great world
Come
was
on.
created by God.
Yeah.
So that in and of itself is the fullness of God. But there is a level, there is a depth
Mhm.
that, if we are to be Christ-like, he said, if you suffer with me, you'll reign with me. And I never asked God for suffering, but I asked him for some other things. And he said, it is by this way that those things will come. And
Mhm.
so sometimes in so doing, we invite that into us. He said, we take up the cross of Christ. And so, do I know of another way? I personally do not, because my life has been, it bears out
Yeah.
great suffering and great joy. But no, I mean, I honestly think that you can, if you're aware enough, you
Mhm.
can certainly take in the greatness of God, but
Yeah.
nothing like him delivering you. My old pastor used to always say, I know God is a keeper. He's a deliverer, but he's also a keeper. And he would always say, God, you don't have to deliver me. I'm okay if you just keep me. And that's great. And God is a keeper. And
Mhm.
man, There's nothing like being kept, in his ark of safety. But when God pulls you through and you know it was nobody but God, how can you
Listen,
not be completely in love with him?
come on.
I mean, I don't just love him. I'm in love with
In
him.
love, like
Yeah, yeah,
in
yeah, yeah,
oh, it's a
yeah,
beautiful feeling to be here and to
yeah,
serve a God like the one we serve, how
yeah.
big and how strong and how sovereign and omnipotent, all these words that God
Yes.
is. I feel that in my spirit every day I get up. And I want that for everybody. But
Yeah.
I also recognize I haven't always felt this way. And
Yes.
so I want so bad for people to have God in their hearts like I do. And this has
Hmm.
been, kind of my life's purpose, I think. I think I feel
Hmm.
that way, to really spread the gospel
Yeah.
through my experiences, because I might be the only experience of God somebody may have just by talking to me. I don't know. We don't know. So
And I love the platform that you're allowing God to, that you're using, that God's allowing you to use for that purpose.
yeah,
The name of your podcast and
thank you.
your vision is an amazing thing, because that's who and what we are supposed to be. It's supposed to be able to flow through us,
Yeah,
so that someone who may not be able to connect to God, the abstract God, in a way, they
yeah,
need a tangible
yeah.
voice and reflection and representation. And I love that you're allowing yourself in this way, using this new age platform to be able to spread the gospel, sneak it in on folks, if you will. Uh,
Yeah, that's definitely it. That's the purpose. So I appreciate those kind words.
right.
All right, last two questions, and then we'll wrap up. What are you most grateful for in your life right now?
Prayer.
Mm,
And I've been singing What a Friend We Have in Jesus. It's just been in my spirit, because in that it says what a privilege it is to carry everything to God in prayer. And there was a time when I used prayer as a gripe session, you know, or I'm pleading to God, hear me, answer me. Now I use it to, to connect
yeah.
to God. And I just think that is the greatest privilege in this season, because I've needed that. You talk about journaling, and
Mhm.
so I journal, I have therapy, I have friends and all this, but there is nothing like when I connect with God directly through prayer. And so I am most grateful for that, because the other thing about it is God hears me and he answers me. I'll
Yeah.
tell you, sometimes before I can get up off my knees,
Mhm.
he's already answering. So
Come on.
man, that's magic. That's
Come on.
magical.
Yes, I
I
agree.
wouldn't take anything for the ability to pray and connect with God. And I can do that anytime, anywhere. But when I do it intentionally in my quiet
Yeah.
time with God, oh man, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm most grateful for right now.
Absolutely, that's great. That's awesome. I'm right there with you with prayer. Such a special and sacred time. No
Mm,
matter in what form, you engage in prayer with
yeah,
God.
yeah, yeah.
All right. So my final question for you. I like to do this with my guests because I'm all about music and all of that. So tell the people, what's your favorite worship song? And it could be your favorite song right now, because I know mine changes like weekly, but your favorite song right now, and then maybe one of your all-time favorite worship songs.
Mm. I saw that at the end, and let me just say that I am um, I'm so non-committal when it comes to music, because music is my language. I mean,
Oh,
it's I sing all the time. I'm humming, I'm singing, all the time, and I cross, genres of music all the time. So I feel like I'm being like I'm, how in scripture they ask, to split the baby.
Mm-hmm.
I'm that one that just says, just have it, because I can't separate anyone. Um,
Yeah.
but there was a worship song that I was listening to, mm, and I can't think of the name of it. I have so many. Total Praise is one of my greatest, because it represents, you know, how I approach my time, my worship with God is just like try, to just really surrender
Mm.
all. And that's one of my other ones right now is I Surrender All.
Yeah.
Though it's a hymn, so it's not really a worship song, but I dare you
Yeah.
to just begin to sing that and
Yeah.
try to stay pulled together. So just really surrendering all to God and total praises. And if I think of this other one that I've been singing, um, lately, I'll mention it. But
Okay.
I'm curious to know yours.
Okay. So let's see. On my past episodes, I always mention Jonathan McReynolds. Anything really Jonathan McReynolds.
Oh,
I'm a fan of. God is good. His Make Room album was
let me
just,
tell you, Make Room.
yeah.
God gave me that song because again, this was the place he was taking me to. And God says, you got to get stuff out of the way, Nicole. You got to make room
Ooh,
for me. If I tell you that song
come
transformed
on.
oh God, I'm glad you said that. I mean, and that's just been recently. That's just been within the last few months. And I must have played it
Yeah.
ad nauseum. I mean, I just played it over and over because I knew that that's the place God
Yeah.
was taking me
Come on.
to. And I'm sorry to interject, but when you said that, I just almost wanted to jump up and, you know,
Oh yeah, I
my
mean,
God.
that's how I feel. His music just really just touches the depths of my soul. Um,
Mm,
and so
yeah,
that's anything dealing with Jonathan McReynolds. And then another one is a song called Nothing Else. Cody, I can't think of the last name, but anyway, it's very the lyrics really just I just meditate on the lyrics. It's just talking about how God you don't need anything else. Like nothing else matters if you have God.
mm,
And so I
mm,
sit and I listen to that one on repeat as well. And so
mm.
any other songs that I get, I always add it to my playlist. So I'm all about playlists. I'd like to think of myself as a playlist curator. So
You have to
I
send
will.
me one if you don't
I
mind
do.
sharing.
No, I don't.
Send
I
it.
don't. I definitely will.
Oh,
So we can share music because music is also one of my languages too. I love it. I can't say I ain't humming nothing. I'd be humming back here in my room, but that's about it because I have a little tone deaf too. So, but I still appreciate and value music and what it does for me in my life. So, yeah.
yes. Yeah.
But
Wow. Yeah,
anywho,
music is my places. Whatever place I'm in, God sends me
yeah,
a song and
yeah,
it becomes the backdrop for that place. And then when he moves me someplace else, then another piece comes and it starts to be, the background for that
yeah,
place. So yeah,
yeah.
we love
Thank
music.
God for music because it has really gotten me out of some tough places. Um, So anyway, well, that concludes our conversation for today. I think this has been great, and honestly, we got to do a part two of something. So be on standby again for season three. We need to think of
I would love to. Anytime you make room for me, I'm
look at
coming.
that. I love it. I love it. I sure will. Well, Miss Nicole, I appreciate you and wish you the best, and we'll be talking again.
Thank you.
All right, awesome. Have a good night.
You too.
Bye.